This is a quick introduction to handling tmux, the terminal multiplexer, in order to manage remote sessions. So what is tmux? tmux is a text-based window manager that can handle multiple shell sessions from a single session. So think about it like a normal window manager that you're used to from GUIs. However, tmux only manages text sessions and not graphical sessions. You can give sessions names for easy access, and the nice thing is you can detach from the session anytime and reattach later. This is really convenient if you have to make a pause, make a break from your work, and return later and continue from the point where you left it. So the typical usage model of this tmux system is that you connect to a host, let's call it the screen host, using SSH for example, and then on the screen host a server process is running that manages your tmux sessions, and you use a special tmux command to attach to these sessions again, do something in them, and then you can detach at any time and reattach any time later. And just continue where you left off. So how do you start tmux and how do you attach to a session? How do you detach? So the command for tmux is called, unsurprisingly, tmux. Starting a new tmux session from a normal shell is very easy. You just call tmux. If you don't say anything else, then the session will be named 0 and every new session will have consecutive numbers. You can give the session a name with the new command and the -s option. So it can be any string. Okay, once the new session is established, you will get a shell, a single window within the session. And if you want to reattach an existing session, which you have detached before, then you have to give tmux the command attach session. If there's only one session to attach to, then nothing else is necessary, else you have to supply the session ID with a -t parameter. If you have multiple sessions and you want to know which there are or what they're named, then the tmux ls command gives you a list of existing sessions on this host. Most importantly, if you're within tmux and you're within a shell session, how do you detach? How do you exit from this? And for that, you hit the so-called command key. By default, the command key is Control B. I will tell you later how to change that if you don't like it. But by default, it's Control B. And then after the command key, you hit the actual command. And by the command D, you detach from the session and go back to the shell where you called tmux or tmux attach session. Finally, if you want to get rid of all existing sessions on a server, you can do that by tmux kill session, and then if you want, you can also give it a session ID to kill the session that you identify using the ID. Okay, to demonstrate this, let me show you how it works. On my local laptop here, I'm going to connect to a server called CSHPC. Okay, now tmux is installed in this server. Right now, if we type tmux ls, you see there are no tmux sessions running. It tells me no server running. And so in order to establish a tmux session, I'm just giving it the command tmux without anything else. The session will be called 0. And within this session, I will get a window. Now this window is now running a normal shell. I can do whatever I want. For example, I can run top. And then for some reason, I'd like to detach from this session and reattach to it later, maybe tomorrow. So how do I do that? I hit the command key, which is by default Control B, and then the small d after that. So this way I detach from this session. tmux tells me that I have detached from session 0. A tmux ls shows me a list of sessions now. There's now one session, 0, it's running. It has one window, And it also tells me when it was created and how big it is in terms of characters, width and height. All right, so I can now even log out from this host. The tmux server process keeps running, and I can log in again later and reattach using the attach session command. Actually, it's sufficient to type any command up to the point where it's unique, so I can also type tmux att. Since there's only one session running, I don't even have to supply a name, so tmux att is sufficient. And that's my session. The top command has been running all the time, and I can continue working where I left off. Alright, so this is the basic functionality. Now, the main feature of tmux is to manage windows. A window in tmux, in the tmux context, is like a screen with a shell running. So if you're used to how web browsers handle things, then a screen is like a tab. And you can open any number of tabs, give them names, and have in this way several windows running at the same time within one session. So here on the right we see that these windows in this case have been given different names. I'll tell you in a minute how this is done. And you can switch between those windows and do different things in these windows, and again detach and reattach at any time. Now there are a couple of commands you have to know about to handle these windows. Creating a new window is done with Command C. So if your command key again is the default Control B, you just hit Control B followed by C, and this gives you a new window in the list. By default they are numbered consecutively, and a new window is given a name that corresponds to the shell that you're using. In my case this would be bash. Now if you have got a lot of windows running, it can quickly be overwhelming. So in order to select a window, you may either address it by name or by number, but you can also select from a list. So if you hit Command W, this will give you a list of all windows in the current session. And in case you happen to be running several sessions, it will even show you all the sessions with all the windows in those sessions. So you can even switch between sessions. Command N or P goes to the next and the previous window in the list. If you look at the bottom line here, we have one window called Meggie with an asterisk appended. There's another one called Emmy with a minus. The one with the asterisk is the currently active window, and the one with the minus is the previous window that you looked at before. If you want to jump to a window but you forgot what it was named, you can go there by hitting Command F, and then you can type in a string, and it will give you a list of all windows that match this string. And finally, probably very important, by default, as I told you, the windows are named like the shell you're using in there. If you want to rename it to anything you like, you can hit Command comma, and it will prompt you with a line where you can edit the name of the window. Alright, let's try this right away. So right now we have one window in this session. It's called bash because this is what the name is by default. We'd like to rename it to something more intuitive. So let's hit Command comma, and now it enables me to edit this name. Since the machine I'm logged into is CSHPC, I'm calling it CSHPC. Okay, that's it. Let's create a new window. This is done with Command C, hitting Command C. So you see the next window has a number 1 and a title of bash. And let's say I want to connect to Emmy because within this window I want to work with the Emmy machine. So I connect to Emmy using SSH within this window. It's still called, well, not bash, but SSH, because this is what screen does. You run a command and the title of the window is changed according to the command. If you don't like that, you can rename it again. Let's call it Emmy. All right. And let's say we want a third window. Again, Command C. And in this window, I want to connect to the Maggie server. And again, I'm going to rename the window to Maggie. All right. So in order to switch between windows, we have several possibilities, and there are too many to mention them all here. The most important one is you can hit the Command key and then any single-digit number. So for example, if I want to go back to Windows 0 with a CSHPC shell, I hit Command and then 0, and this gives me back the CSHPC window. Selecting from a list is also simple. Command W. And if I hit Command W, I get this list on the top. It shows me that there's one session titled 0 with 3 windows. And if I select this line that shows me the session, then you see at the bottom, in the bottom half of the window, I see a side-by-side rendering of the 3 windows within this session. Very nice overview. And of course, I can select any window within this session just by going there and hitting Enter. Finding a window by name is also easy. For example, I know there's a window called Emmy, so I want to find any window that matches EMM, which I've just typed. And you see here, it only gives me one choice because this is the only window title that matches EMM. And I'm going there. All right. So much for dealing with Windows. There's a lot more commands that you can look up in the documentation, but this should suffice for the moment. All right, so next is about panes. A pane is a sub-window, so think of it like a split-screen view. A typical use case could be that you connect to the same server in both panes, and for example, you could do some editing and compiling and testing on the front end in the left pane, and in the right pane, you connect to a specific node on a cluster, and you do actual production runs there. So you have the editing and testing in the production run window side by side. This is the purpose of panes. If you don't like that, you don't have to use it, but I think it's quite convenient to work with sometimes. So it's like a split screen feature. A window can have several panes, and you can create new ones, and you can also delete panes. So here are the basic commands. If you want to split a pane, an existing pane, vertically in a left and a right pane, you hit Command%. If you want to split it in a top and bottom pane, you hit Command quotation mark. Command O moves you to the next pane. So if you hit Command O repeatedly, then you cycle through all the panes within a window. Sometimes you want to, for example, you want to copy something out of a pane into something else. And this is a little bit difficult since this is text-based, so it's actually not possible using just the mouse to copy something out of a pane. So with Command Z, you can zoom into the current pane, make it full screen if you like, make it fill the whole window, and then you can work with it as if it were the only pane in the window, and hitting Command Z again will get you back to the standard pane split screen view. One feature I found nice is the big clock display. Command T shows a character-based big clock if you like that. Panes can be resized, and there are several options for that. You can also give it explicit commands, but the easiest way to resize a pane by one character in any direction is by hitting Command and then Control and one of the arrow keys. So for example, if you want to enlarge the current pane by one character to the right, you hit Command and then Control right arrow. You can also move among panes using Command and the arrow keys now without the control. So just Command right arrow gets you from the current pane to its right neighbor. Command down arrow gets you from the current pane to its bottom neighbor, and so on. So you can cycle or can switch between panes using Command and the arrow keys. Okay, let's look at this. Let's say I'd like to split my CSHPC window into 2 panes. So I'm hitting Command %. Command % gives me two side-by-side panes, starting from the current pane. So now I can display stuff in the right pane here. And in the left pane, I can do other stuff. Let's go to the right pane again and split this pane horizontally. This is done by Command quotation marks. Okay, and let's move around a little bit. Hitting Command O cycles through all the panes. So hitting repeatedly Command O goes from pane to pane. Now if I'm here and I want to go to the top neighbor pane, I can hit Command up arrow and going back with Command down arrow, and Command left arrow gets me to the left neighbor. I promised you to show you the clock feature. This is done with Command T. You have this nice character-based clock, and you can leave it running. If you don't touch it, it will keep running. If you hit any character within the pane, then it will go away and show you the normal pane content. The last feature I want to show is the zoom in feature. So if you want to make one pane full screen size to fill the whole area of the window, you can hit Command Z. That will give you temporarily a full window pane. And then hitting, you see this by looking at the name here. We're in the CSHPC window, and it's a zoomed in pane, which is denoted by the character Z here. Hitting Control Z again gets you back to the old view. Okay, so much for panes. A nice feature that you can appreciate if you have a lot of output you want to browse through is the copy mode. Copy mode enables you to move around in a pane, especially if you have to view data that has already been scrolled out of view. So you can even view stuff that's very old. So stuff usually that's not possible with a normal terminal window, but tmux keeps track of a configurable number of lines for you per pane, and you can go there and even copy out stuff and paste it somewhere else if needed. Now, if you want to use this feature, the first thing you have to do is decide which keys you want to use for moving around and copying stuff. There's basically a choice between Emacs and VI mode, and for me, since I prefer Emacs, I configured Emacs mode. This is done in the configuration file, which I will come to on the next slide. Just accept it for a moment that I have configured Emacs controls for copy mode. So these are probably the most important keys and commands for dealing with copy mode. You enter copy mode by hitting Command closing bracket. Within copy mode, you can move around with the arrow keys. Within the pane, you can even scroll through the content of the pane up to a certain configurable history limit. If you want to select something to copy to somewhere else, you can start a selection. In this case, with the usual Emacs command Control Space. If you want to copy the selected area to the tmux buffer, which is like a clipboard but internal to tmux, then you hit Alt W. And automatically this will also leave copy mode. If you want to leave copy mode on purpose, not doing anything, just hit escape. If you have copied anything to the tmux buffer and you want to paste it somewhere else into a different window, even to a different session, you can just paste it using Command opening bracket. Okay, let's try this. So let's go to the left pane here. So what I'd like to do is I would like to view some of the stuff that has been scrolled out of this pane already. So I'm entering copy mode, hitting Command opening bracket. The fact that copy mode is active is visible by this, denoted by this label up here. And I can now use the arrow keys to move around. I have configured tmux to remember up to 10,000 lines of output per pane. So in this particular pane, I've only got 79 lines. And let's say I'd like to copy something. For example, this username. I'm copying it using the normal Emacs copying facility, so control space and moving around with the arrow keys. And then to copy this selection into the tmux buffer, I hit Alt W, which automatically makes me leave copy mode, but the text is now in the tmux buffer. And now I can paste it anywhere. For example, go to the next pane and paste it here just by hitting Command closing bracket. Okay, so this is a very easy and advanced way to move around panes and copy data from one pane to another. All right. The final thing I want to concentrate on is the config file. Now, if you look around in the internet, there are lots of pages about tmux, and many people have made it their life goal to provide very extensive and very intricate tmux configurations. You can make it do almost anything. So have a go at this. So I've picked a couple of interesting options that you can put into the configuration file to make your life a little easier or to configure certain things. But it can certainly be much more complicated than what I'm telling you here. Now, first of all, your personal tmux config file is located in your home directory. It's called .tmux.conf. This file is read when the server starts for the first time. So whenever a session is running already and you're reconnecting to it, for example, this file is not automatically read. You have to terminate all your sessions and start tmux fresh if you want it to reread the source file. You can also do this on purpose by using an explicit tmux command. You enter tmux commands by hitting the command key, then a colon, so similar to vi, and then a command, in this case source file and the name of the file. So hitting command colon source file.tmux.conf will read the config file from the disk and execute it. So here in this gray box, this is my personal config file with some options I find useful. It's very simple compared to other stuff you find on the internet, but it's still interesting. So for me, for example, the default command key, Control B, is not so convenient. I like something quicker to type. So I like Control A because I was used to screen before, which is similar to tmux but much older. And so I like to make Control A the command key. To do this, I'm using the unbind command to unbind the command key from Control B, and then configuring Control A as a new command key by setting set option -G prefix Control A. So now Control A is my new command key. Now there's one problem. You have to specify what to do if you actually want to send the command key to a shell. Okay, typing Control A will not work if Control A is your command key. So this is done by the next line, bind key, Control A, send prefix. So send prefix means send what is actually being configured as the command key or prefix key. And this is done by Control A. So hitting Control A twice now will send a Control A to the shell, which for example would get you to the left end of a line in Emacs, or in Bash, it would get you to the left end of the command line. As I told you before, for copy mode, if you want to use that, you have to make a choice between VI and Emacs. I choose Emacs, so the command here is set option -G mode keys Emacs. Or use VI if you like that better. You can even make tmux recognize your mouse. So if you say set -G mouse on, you can switch between panes within a window using the mouse, clicking just on the pane. You can also switch between windows within a session using the mouse. I don't like that because it changes the standard way the mouse behaves, and to get back the standard way you would have to hit Shift and then click on something, which is a different kind of workflow, so I don't like it, but I mention it here because I'm sure that many people will find this interesting. Window renaming is something of a nuisance if it's enabled. So by default, if you don't give it any extra option, the name of a window will be renamed to the process that's currently running. So for example, if you don't rename it explicitly, then a new window will always be called bash. If you type an SSH command within the bash, then the window will be renamed SSH. So I don't like that. So I will, I'm actually disallowing tmux here with this command to rename the window, except if it has the default name. So whenever this option means whenever I rename a window using command comma and give it an explicit name, tmux will not allow renaming it, which I find is the decent behavior. And finally, there is a default limit for the number of lines that a pane buffer remembers. I think it's a few thousand lines. So with this option, set option -g history limit 10,000, I'm setting it to 10,000 lines. Each single pane in my setup of tmux will now remember 10,000 lines of history.